One thing that you want to learn for free from me when it comes to walking with God is that you can't perform. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be slightly different. I'm trying to think out loud or ponder out loud. Like, that's literally what's on my mind when I think of this video. I never thought that I would actually be doing any Christian content. I know I didn't really have a specific direction I wanted this channel to go in. I just kind of wanted to dip my toes in every little thing that I could, but I never thought that talking about my faith and talking about Christianity was something that I was gonna do. And honestly, a big part of that is because the road has not been as easy as I thought it was gonna be. It's been filled with so many curveballs, challenges on my part. It was far from what I expected, but in the same time it has exceeded my expectations. Like, let me not talk as if like it's over or whatever. But anyway, a little backstory without, I guess, maybe making a whole story time of this video, because this is not a story time. I was saved in 2017, and so many things happened between 2017 and this year, but for a good part of 2020 I was actually not interested in the things of God. Like, I was trying my best to be uninterested of the things of God. I was trying my best to not read my Bible, to not think about God, to not I run away from him. Like, it just to create a picture, it was kind of like Adam and Eve in the garden and me trying to hide because I thought I was naked, and it was really complicated. It was a really complicated thing, and even as I think about it right now, I'm not entirely sure I can process it, or I can explain it properly, or I can really relive it in an accurate manner for it to make sense. But anyway, for the most part, I was, just doing whatever and ignoring that aspect of my life when I'd given so much to it. But fast forward only literally like a couple of weeks, maybe a month ago or 4 weeks ago, really, maybe 3, I don't know. Like, I just kind of had this feeling within my heart where it wasn't even necessary that I was in trouble or anything was happening or I was down, but I had made some life choices and I was coming to certain realizations. And when I was coming to certain realizations, without being too vague, I just felt it within my heart that God was leading me to come back to him. But it wasn't a sense of, it was kind of like come back to him like the prodigal son in the pigsty, except I wasn't really in the pigsty. But the beauty of this, I think, for me anyway, is that I wasn't in a moment of despair to realize that I had to come back to God. I was actually in a good place, but I still felt convicted that this is not the best that I could have and I could live, and this is not the best, that this is not all that there is to life and to my being. And it's such a familiar feeling. So as I was wrapping my head around it, it's just like I went from hiding the whole of last year to now, in like such a short moment of time, feeling just kind of like what I would be able to describe as like the warm embrace of God. And it just felt like home. It felt so familiar. It felt like, just come back. Like, whatever it is that you're doing, all this wandering that you're doing, going up and down, being a busybody, trying to hide, trying to divert, forget all of that. Just come back to me. And as I started to ponder on those things, and I started to open my heart more, and I started to know, like, okay, I'm gonna have to read the Bible, I'm gonna have to do this, I'm gonna get back into the word, and there's a certain standard and structure of how I ought to live my life. I kind of came into certain challenges, if you'd call them. So as I'm processing all these things and I'm making all these decisions, I came into something also very familiar, and that is me. I am very familiar to myself. I know how I operate when it comes to a task, to things. I wanted to get in there and I wanted to do the works, right? Bear in mind, I spent 1 year technically ignoring God, and God has called me back through His grace, through His power, through His Spirit. And that wasn't enough for me for some reason. I felt like I had to make up for it, and I had to get started, right? I had to get started, as if all this time it hasn't been God watching over me and seeing me through certain things. But now it became real that I have a part to play, which is one of the mistakes that I made in the first place that led me to the same spot that I was, where I was running away from God. I wanted to be my own God. I wanted to give God a hand. This whole idea of wanting to know what your purpose is and wanting to know why God has called you. And the first time, when I first got born again, it wasn't really a thought of mine, but down the line it became an obsession of mine, where I really wanted to know what God's purpose for my life was. And when I went down that road, so many things happened. To be quite honest with you, that's not the purpose of this video. But when it was happening this time around, or I guess like when the prodigal son was saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go back to my father's house, and I know what I did was bad, and he might not want me to be his son again, but the least I can do is petition to at least be one of the workers, because my father is a good father, and even his servants are treated so well, so I can at least taste a little bit of that, right? So he goes on his way, and he's got this speech, theoretically or hypothetically, he's got this speech in his brain, in his mind, on how he's going to apologize, how he's going to lay it down, and how he's going to explain himself so that his father will understand him. And the father is waiting and watching for him. He doesn't care about no speech. He's just happy that his son has come back. And likewise, even though God kind of in a sense tapped me on the shoulder whilst I was busy living life again, I still had this performance within me that felt like I had to now start making up for the time that I've lost, instead of just enjoying being welcomed and being home in a sense, right? So I immediately was like, I'm gonna fast. And then I was like, I'm gonna fast for 30 days, and I'm gonna be reading the Bible every day. I'm gonna start waking up at 4, and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And it was so overwhelming that even when I was reading the Bible, I was more excited or more focused on finishing the book to say that I'd finished the book. Or like when I was fasting, I was more excited on finishing the fast to say that I'd fasted, rather than my heart posture, rather than just being embraced by God, enjoying his time, taking my time, getting immersed in the word, that even if I don't get anything out of it, like revelation wise, I'm spending time. I am welcomed. I have the opportunity to be welcomed into the family of God, because it wasn't too late for me. It wasn't too late at all. Like it wasn't too late. He was waiting for me. I heard the call and I answered the call, and I did not ignore it. Like, instead of enjoying that, understanding that, basking in that grace, letting that transform me and take me, I was obsessing about purpose. And it's just something that I see. I mean, like, we live in a world where you have to be doing something. If you're not doing nothing, then you're not going anywhere. Not just in Christianity, but just the whole world in general. Like, if you're not hustling, if you're not influencing, if you don't have side hustles, if you're not exceeding in your workforce, if you're not doing this and that in lockdown and in quarantine, then you are wasting your life, and you're wasting your potential and your talent. And then I thought the same, likewise, I thought it was the same when it comes to God, that I'm wasting my potential unless I'm waking up and doing this and cramming all these things. But really, a relationship with God is a relationship. A relationship. So I started fasting, and I knew I had to stop fasting because my heart was, yes, I was hungry and I was completing the fast. I wasn't eating and I wasn't looking somber or what have not, but my heart posture was not the same. So I knew I had to dial it back. But in this time as well as just what it truly means to belong to God and what it truly means to be one who has been called by God, we have this obsession in our culture, like I said earlier, about purpose. And the one thing that the Bible does say that he has called you to be is to be transformed into the image of his son. If you ever wonder what your purpose in life is and you belong to Christ, just start there. It's so easy to tie our identity and our purpose in things, in accomplishments, in people, in relationships, and it's just not the case. And I feel like it puts so much pressure. Like, can you imagine? My mind was on, oh, God must have tapped me on my shoulder because he wants me to go deliver a message to people or some sort. Like, he's calling me out of the darkness. He's calling me out of the darkness so that I can be the light of the world. And yes, that's true. But if anything, God really wants you, right? I listened to Miles Monroe a while back, and he had, like, I don't remember what this message was, but in the video he talks about how if nobody had to be saved and nobody had to come to Christ, what would your purpose be? A lot of people that want to be teachers and pastors and evangelists and prophets and all these things, they're so eager and they have this badge of honor of, like, I'm doing it for God. But that question really struck me because it was like, so if there was no one else to serve God, if there was no one else that you were gonna go and save on behalf of God, what do you have left between what, not necessarily what is your purpose, but like, what do you have left when it comes to between you and God? Like, if your relationship with God is so transactional, right? It's, I come to you, God, you give me a word and I run and I give it to other people, then what is there about, like, you don't know that person. If I only ever had a friend that I came to, we even hear it in this day and age where people talk about toxic friends and cutting them off, and they're like, oh, they just come for advice, they just come to vent, they just come to do this, I ain't got time for them, I'm gonna cut them off. Fair enough, granted, God is not us, but like, the fact that we even recognize that those are not qualities and attributes of a successful relationship, right? So in a way, how do I have a successful relationship with God instead of being so preoccupied with things I can do for God, things which inevitably I say I want to do for God, but really I want to do for myself, right? Because I want the glory and I want the praise, and I just want to hide behind the Lord sent me, and then the Lord really didn't send you. What is the true, like, in this, we respect, I think some people do, we respect it when people don't want to share their relationships online, when they want to keep them private. It's not everything that someone who's married shares on Facebook, on Instagram, Facebook. They keep it within themselves, they treasure it for themselves. It's the stuff that carries them through the bad times. Yet I feel like sometimes when it comes to God, we don't see him like that. He's so distant. Like, I'm just saying, not maybe me, maybe you don't, but sometimes I felt like I don't see him like that. He's so far and he's so distant, and I have to perform for him. But if there's one thing that you want to learn for free from me when it comes to walking with God, is that you can't perform. You can never perform. He knows it, he sees it, it comes to light, you get frustrated. I think you just have to surrender, and you just have to seek him every day, and whatever his plan is for your life, I just don't think you need to. Don't chase the plan. Chase God, right? Because more ways than not, the plan that God has for you is possible because He has you in His hands. The Bible says that Christ will turn this heart of mine that was once stone into a heart of flesh, and that I will obey His commandments, and I will love Him the way I ought to love Him. So if He has a plan for me, what makes me think that if I am not willing to sit through the pruning and the transformation and the pressure, that I can possibly measure up to this plan? I will find a way to insert myself, and I will find a way to ruin it, evidently, because it's not one or the other. It's Christ working through me, and maybe the plan comes up. The plan is not even necessarily the fruit sometimes. It's just like an added bonus. And the plan is not always grand. But what is grand and what is true and what is big is the transformation that is happening. How does one's heart go from being stony to being flesh-like? That is something we ought to seek, and we ought to want, and we ought to sit still and surrender for, because honestly, nothing in this world can measure to that truth. I hope I did justice in this video. I had, you know when you have everything planned out and then it's time to sit down and do it, and it's slightly different. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope something of significance came out of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.